In June 2023, Prince Harry became the first senior royal to give sworn evidence in a British courtroom in over a century. He was there to prosecute the press. What the testimony revealed, almost incidentally, was something closer to a self-portrait. Standing as a claimant in the Mirror Group newspaper's phone hacking trial, Harry spent nearly 5 hours at the High Court accusing the tabloids of systematic surveillance, of ruining his adolescence, of poisoning every relationship he ever valued. The judge, Justice Timothy Fancourt, ultimately ruled in Harry's favor on 15 of the 33 articles submitted, awarding him £140,600 in damages and confirming that phone hacking at Mirror Group had been widespread and habitual across years of operation. The accusations Harry brought were largely vindicated, but buried inside the testimony Harry himself chose to deliver was a confession that had nothing to do with tabloid wrongdoing. "I remember finding it very hard to trust anyone," he told the court, which led to bouts of depression and paranoia. He described his circle of friends becoming smaller and smaller, not because people had betrayed him, but because suspicion alone was sufficient to cut them out. "I would become immediately suspicious," he said, "of anyone that was named in a story about me." He wasn't describing a man wronged by the press. He was describing a man who had learned to treat proximity as evidence of guilt. That distinction is the key to a trail of discarded friendships, frozen-out confidants, and departing staff that spans more than 2 decades, and that begins long before Meghan Markle enters the story at all. The easiest version of this narrative blames the tabloids. The second easiest blames Meghan. Both versions contain enough truth to be persuasive, and both miss the pattern entirely. Harry's press trauma is real and extensively documented. In 2005, The Sun published photographs of him wearing a Nazi costume to a friend's fancy dress party. The humiliation was global and immediate. 7 years later, in August 2012, TMZ published photographs of a 27-year-old Harry naked in a suite at the Wynn Encore Tower in Las Vegas, taken during what had been intended as a private game of strip billiards with a group of friends. Harry had been photographed at a pool party at MGM Grand's Wet Republic earlier that weekend. The Sun published the images days after TMZ under the headline, "Heir It Is." Harry's statement, delivered from Afghanistan, was unsparing. "I probably let myself down. I let my family down. I let other people down." The Las Vegas incident accelerated something that was already in motion. Edward Lane Fox, a former captain in the Blues and Royals who had left the Household Cavalry in 2006 before moving into financial communications at RLM Finsbury, joined Harry's staff in May 2013, just months after the photographs broke. His mandate was clear: rebuild Harry's public identity. Over 5 years, Lane Fox managed the launch of the Invictus Games in 2014, coordinated more than 30 overseas visits on behalf of the UK government, ran the Heads Together mental health campaign, and oversaw the 2018 royal wedding. The transformation was genuine. The party prince became a working royal with a credible humanitarian platform. But the Las Vegas photographs had already confirmed something for Harry that Lane Fox's work couldn't fully undo. That no private moment was safe. That any wall or phone or person present was a potential source of exposure. The paranoia that followed wasn't irrational given the circumstances. The problem was who it came to target. Chelsea Davy met Harry in early 2004. She was a Zimbabwean-born student. He was a 19-year-old navigating life after Eton. The relationship ran on and off until roughly mid-2010. 6 years of genuine attachment punctuated by the relentless pressure of tabloid scrutiny. In an interview with The Times, Davy described what that pressure felt like from the inside. "It was so full-on, crazy and scary and uncomfortable. I found it very difficult when it was bad. I couldn't cope," She noted that it had all happened in her late teens and early 20s, when she had no preparation for what a relationship with a senior royal actually involved. Harry, in his separate legal action against Associated Newspapers, publishers of the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday, described the same period from his side. His 23-page witness statement characterized the coverage of his early life as making him paranoid beyond belief. He told the court that suspicion over tabloid leaks had caused great challenges in his relationships and led him to cut people out of his life. The mechanism was always the same. A story appeared, Harry scanned the names nearest to it, and the most plausible candidate for suspicion was quietly removed. Davy, named in coverage repeatedly, was among those caught in that logic. Natalie Pinkham's situation ran parallel. A television presenter first linked to Harry in 2003 and connected to him in print by the Mail on Sunday as far back as December 2002. Pinkham maintained a friendship with Harry long after any romantic element had ended. By 2009, she had even introduced Harry to Caroline Flack, a brief romance that lasted until the press discovered it, at which point it stopped. In his testimony against Associated Newspapers, Harry stated explicitly that the Daily Mail and Mail on Sunday's coverage had led to him not speaking to Pinkham for years. Not because anything had been confirmed against her, but because the stories existed and she was adjacent to them. It seemed as though someone was leaking these stories, Harry told the court. But I now believe that it will have come from listening in to our communications, voicemail interception, and/or blagging. He eventually concluded, after years of costly litigation, that the leaks had come from the newspapers themselves. Pinkham hadn't betrayed him. The paranoia had, and it had done so at the cost of a friendship that stretched back to his early 20s. The tragedy of that admission is precise. Harry now knows what he destroyed and why. The question it raises is when that knowledge actually arrived. Dominic West is the case that makes the pattern impossible to explain as press-driven trauma alone. West and Harry met in November 2013 during the Walking with the Wounded South Pole Allied Challenge, a 3-week charity expedition across Antarctica alongside military veterans, several of whom were amputees. Temperatures on the ice reached -50 degrees Celsius. The veterans skied across the terrain as a demonstration of recovery and resilience. Harry participated as patron and teammate, West as a supporter. By the end of the trek, the two had developed the kind of friendship that extreme shared conditions often accelerate. West described Harry as a really cool guy, very much part of the team. By all available accounts, Harry felt the same way. Then came the press conference. In 2014, journalists asked the expedition's participants about the high points of the journey. West obliged with what he evidently took to be warm, celebratory anecdotes. He described the mood when the team reached the South Pole on December 13th. 2 of the Aussie guys stripped naked and ran round the pole, but most of us, Harry included, just went on a 2-day bender with the Icelandic truck drivers, who had brought some lethal homebrew with them. A second anecdote, reported by Daily Mail columnist Richard Eden, involved trekkers drinking champagne from the prosthetic leg of one of their comrades, a story West apparently shared as one of human solidarity and celebration in extreme conditions. Harry's response was immediate. According to Eden's reporting, a close friend of West's described Harry as having thrown a fit, accusing West of invading his privacy. West confirmed what happened in an interview with Times Radio, released on December 24, 2023. Asked whether he had reached out to Harry after the fallout, West replied, No. I said too much in a press conference, and so we didn't speak after that." When pressed on what specifically he had said, West offered, "I think I was asked what we did to celebrate when we got there, and probably said something too much." The word probably is doing significant work. A decade later, West remains genuinely uncertain about what he did wrong. The friendship had lasted the length of an Antarctic charity expedition and the year that followed. It ended permanently over anecdotes delivered in good faith at a press conference arranged to celebrate a charity event for injured veterans. Additional reporting noted that Harry subsequently cut off not just West, but anyone he assumed to be connected to the actor. Tom Inskip's story is the one that sits most uncomfortably, because it reveals something about Harry that even his most sympathetic observers can't fully rationalize. Inskip, known universally in Harry's social circle as Skippy, met Harry at Eton and became his closest friend across more than 2 decades. He was Harry's wingman through the tabloid-tracked nightclub years, appeared alongside him on holidays, reported breathlessly in the press, and organized the Las Vegas trip in August 2012 that produced the photograph scandal Harry would reference in court testimony a decade later. In March 2017, Harry served as usher at Inskip's wedding to Laura Hughes Young at the Round Hill Hotel in Montego Bay, Jamaica. Approximately 40 of Harry's oldest friends gathered for the 3-day celebration. Meghan attended as Harry's girlfriend. It should have been an uncomplicated meeting of 2 worlds. It wasn't. Tom Bower's book, Revenge, records that the group gathered for Inskip's wedding were quickly disappointed by Meghan, though the specific dynamics of what transpired across those 3 days were never made fully public. What happened in the following months is documented. Inskip raised concerns about the speed of Harry's relationship with Meghan. Specifically, according to Omid Scobie and Carolyn Durand in Finding Freedom, widely understood as the closest thing to an authorized account of Harry and Meghan's perspective, Inskip advised Harry to try living with Meghan before doing anything more serious. A source told Scobie and Durand that the advice came from a good place. Harry didn't see it that way. It really hurt him, the same source said, that someone he was so close to wouldn't trust his judgment. The source of this account matters. Finding Freedom isn't a hostile biography. Scobie and Durand wrote with access to Harry and Meghan's circle and produced an account broadly sympathetic to the couple. The book's inclusion of the Inskip episode, the advice, Harry's reaction, the exclusion, makes the episode harder to dismiss as tabloid invention. Even the sympathetic account confirms the sequence. Inskip and his wife Laura were invited to the wedding ceremony on May 19, 2018, and to the lunchtime reception. They didn't make the evening guest list. Scobie and Durand wrote directly, "Many of Harry's old friends said that the evening guest list was the prince and his bride's way of saying, 'These are the people we want in our lives moving forward.'" Notably absent, the authors confirmed, were Skippy and Laura. The following morning at brunch, Inskip told friends, "Meghan has changed Harry too much. Then, we've lost him." Inskip had organized Harry's Las Vegas trip. He had been Harry's closest companion across their adult lives. His advice was the advice a best friend gives precisely because he is a best friend. Private, cautious, offered from inside the trust of a 20-year relationship. The cost of that advice was the evening reception. Edward Lane Fox doesn't speak about Harry publicly. He gave no interviews when he departed Harry's service in July 2018, and no comment when Queen Elizabeth appointed him a lieutenant of the Royal Victorian Order the same month, an honor conferred on the day he left. He moved to Freud's PR for 3 years, then to lead 193 Group from 2021 onwards. His final formal connection to Harry's world was the Invictus Games board, which he had joined in 2015. He left that board on February 28, 2025, the same day as fellow trustee Patrick Nicole. The Sussex office offered no comment. Lane Fox is described in reporting as having been genuinely close to Harry, a bridge between Harry's old life and new. That bridge built over 5 years of professional service across some of the most consequential moments in Harry's public life, was dismantled in stages. First the role, then the board seat, then the complete severance of institutional connection. Jack Whitehall provided a cleaner statement than most. Whitehall isn't a tabloid source and carries no obvious grievance against Harry. He socialized in the same circles during the years when Harry still maintained that kind of social life. In February 2025, speaking on Nova FM's Jace and Lauren show in Australia, Whitehall confirmed that Harry had dropped his mates and that he himself was among those dropped. The statement was brief and unelaborated. The observation of someone who had been present, noticed what happened, and said so plainly. The staff turnover in Harry and Meghan's household extends the pattern into the professional sphere, where departures are harder to explain as personal drift. After the May 2018 wedding, the household lost Senior Communications Secretary Katrina McKeever, personal assistant Melissa Tubati, after only 6 months, a female Royal Protection Officer, and Assistant Private Secretary Amy Pickerel, in rapid succession. Samantha Cohen, Lane Fox's successor as private secretary, a woman who had spent 17 years in royal service before joining the Sussexes, departed in October 2019. Valentine Lowe, the former Times royal correspondent, reported in his book, Courtiers, that Cohen had compared the role to working with teenagers. In March 2025, Harry resigned from Sentabale, the charity he co-founded with Prince Seiso of Lesotho in 2006, citing lost trust and confidence in Chair Dr. Sophie Chandaka. Chandaka responded publicly, accusing Harry of harassment and bullying. The Charity Commission investigated and cleared Harry by August 2025. The charity connection, like the others, was formally and completely severed. None of these departures happened in isolation. Taken together, they describe an environment that people with options consistently chose to leave. Aides, trustees, former comrades, childhood friends, long-term partners, and one brilliant private secretary who helped build everything Harry currently has, and then, quietly, walked away from the last remaining thread. Harry's court testimony is the document that makes all of this undeniable, because he wrote it himself. He admitted, under oath, regretting the cutting off of friends who turned out to be innocent of the leaks he suspected them of enabling. He admitted the paranoia. He admitted the shrinking circle. He described the mechanism in precise terms and acknowledged explicitly that it had cost him relationships that deserved better. The press wronged Harry. That isn't in dispute. 2 separate high court actions confirmed it. But the paranoia that grew from genuine press abuse didn't limit itself to the people who actually deserved it. It reached Chelsea Davy, who had no control over what the Mail published. It reached Natalie Pinkham, whose alleged involvement in any leak was never established. It reached Dominic West, who spoke warmly at a charity press conference. It reached Tom Inskip, who told his oldest friend something he believed. Harry knows this. He said so in sworn testimony. The admission is, in its way, genuinely remarkable. A man acknowledging in a public legal proceeding that his own internal architecture destroyed people who had done nothing wrong. The question the evidence can't resolve is whether that knowledge has changed anything. Lane Fox left the Invictus board in February 2025 without a word of public explanation. Sentabale ended in a formal allegation of bullying in March 2025. The Sussex office, each time, said nothing. At the brunch table the morning after his own exclusion from Harry's wedding evening reception, Tom Inskip told the friends around him, "We've lost him." He meant it as a statement about one person. Looking at the full record, the paranoia testimony, the frozen friendships, the departing staff, the charity severances, it reads more like a description of a process that has been running quietly and consistently since well before any of the events most people blame for it. That process, Harry himself has admitted, was always coming from inside. Subscribe for more stories like this.